Well, a good Thursday morning to you, Central Georgia. We've been doing these just about every day this week, starting at 10:30, breaking down the weather that's ahead for you in the short term. And obviously, we've been alluding to the extended forecast throughout each and every one of these. Well, now, as we're getting closer to that possible rain, that is why we want to continue to come on here each and every day, breaking down the latest details as we have them. So as you can see behind me and you saw on the stream plate right here, 2 rounds of rain and possible storms as we head into the end of your weekend in the beginning of next week. We'll break down the latest details here all throughout the stream. So first things first, current conditions. Nice and mostly clear blue skies. You'll see a couple of higher level cirrus clouds out there that are maybe not making it very, very bright blue outside. Nonetheless, it is a forecast still dominated by sunshine, even despite some thin high-level cloud cover. Temperatures upper 50s, a few areas already to the 60s the farther south that you travel, 60 in Butler, up to 61 in Montezuma, and then 62, a trio of those down in Unadilla, Cordele, and Rochelle. And upper 50s the farther north that you travel, Macon actually the coolest of the bunch right now at 56 degrees as we head to the 11 a.m. hour. So yesterday, it is almost the exactly same forecast that what we had on Tuesday, perhaps. So 78 for a high temperature, exactly what we hit on Tuesday. 43 for a low. We got below that number today. I believe Macon did register 39 as of this morning, but still above average for the high temperature and still a little bit below average yesterday for the morning low temperature. Once again, we definitely dipped below average of 47 for the morning lows, and we are probably going to climb above that average mark once again this afternoon. More sunshine, another warm one, less of a breeze today, only a gust up to 15 miles an hour going to be possible, and that may not even be too noticeable. We're definitely looking at a downtick in the winds today as opposed to yesterday afternoon. 79 for a high temperature. I know 1 degree higher, not much change in the forecast. Upper 70s could flirt with 80 this afternoon. It is going to be a beautiful spring feeling day. So let's go through Future View. Let's see what's in store for your next 3 days. Obviously, the Cherry Blossom Festival is winding down, and we have some question marks about the forecast on Sunday. So going through the next 3 days, there's going to be nothing that is stopping you from enjoying one last little bit of fun out at Carolyn Creighton Park in downtown Macon, where all the festivities of the Cherry Blossom Festival are taking place. This is 5 p.m. later on, heading into the evening hours tonight. A few thin high clouds may be the only thing impacting our forecast as you look up at the skies. Now seeing a trend of maybe not as much cloud cover according to Future View throughout the morning hours maybe tomorrow. And that's kind of what we're expecting because we'll see those occasional areas of clearing. That's going to allow our temperatures to warm up into the lower 80s throughout Friday afternoon and once again Saturday afternoon as well. So here's Saturday going to about the noon hour right here. A couple of small green dots that you're seeing. Those are going to be your very light, very brief sprinkle showers. A few of those could try to pop up in central Georgia as we start to see that shift in the winds. They're coming in from the south and the southeast now. It's going to usher in some moisture and some humidity back into our forecast. Not that summertime humidity, definitely not the air that you can wear, but good enough to sprout a sprinkle shower or two. Partly cloudy skies once again for your Saturday, still trending mostly dry. So this is the newest update that we've seen as of this morning. We had question marks about will the rain start to arrive as we get into the second half of Saturday, maybe overnight into Sunday morning. Well, it does look like Saturday is shaping up mostly dry, great for outdoor plans' sake as we head throughout the weekend. But then you can start to see on the very left side of your screen, it does look like a good cluster of moisture over here, some showers, and a couple of storms embedded within this swath of moisture. However, it's still pretty scattered in nature. No real organization with this like we typically see ahead of a frontal boundary driving rain through. And this is at 3 a.m. As far as Future View does go right now, you'll see that the rain is creeping closer and closer to us here in central Georgia. I think the early morning hours Sunday is when that rain is going to kick off. And it's mainly going to be a rain. You may see a storm or two embedded within this, like you see down here just to the northeast of Mobile. Some darker red colors indicating maybe some steadier and heavier rainfall. Obviously coming along with that would be some flashes of lightning, some gusty winds. But we're not really looking at a big severe weather risk as we go into this Sunday rain chance. So with another dry day today, another fire danger statement has been issued. We have low relative humidity values. We don't necessarily have the high wind speeds, but still a steady breeze that could cause any fires that are burning to get out of hand. We definitely have the environmental fuel though. Dry vegetation is going to be something that can lead to this fire spreading rapidly. So be sure if you are doing controlled burns today, you tune into the Georgia Forestry Commission's website for tips on how to keep those under control. But burning is still definitely discouraged while we have these fire danger statements. And a little bit different from the last couple of days. We've seen eastern central Georgia in these, and we've seen maybe northeastern central Georgia in these fire danger statements. Well, today the fire danger statement does go for the entirety of central Georgia. Definitely would discourage burning today. And along with that, we're looking at another one of these to be issued for the 4th day in a row for tomorrow until we finally get some humidity back into the forecast, a little bit of moisture returning, and then we'll finally get out of these fire danger statements. So the red flag warning, you won't see that present, but I did mention all of central Georgia in that fire danger statement as we go throughout today. No counties are highlighted in a color because that's not part of the file that the National Weather Service does have, those watches and warnings. It's simply a statement, so a tick below what the red flag warning is. And obviously we don't have those gusty winds that we did have yesterday afternoon, maybe days prior. So it's not quite as susceptible to seeing those fires or wildfires getting out of control. However, you still, like I said, probably discouraging burning throughout today, throughout tomorrow. Then Saturday, you can probably return back to doing your regular scheduled prescribed burns. So now getting into Cherry Blossom Festival. Like I mentioned, today, tomorrow, and Saturday, get out and enjoy the Cherry Blossom Festival while you can, because these are going to be the last 3 dry days that we have in the forecast. You see, I've highlighted a 10% right there on Saturday. Just a slim chance of a sprinkle, nothing worth canceling any outdoor plans with. And these partly cloudy skies, obviously going to have more clouds in the picture Friday and Saturday. And you may think, oh, more clouds, obviously not getting as much sunlight. It's blocking that sunlight at times. We're not going to be as warm as we have been the last couple of days. Au contraire, because yes, we are going to climb into the low 80s both Friday and Saturday. Once we get above that 80-degree mark, we look to stay above it for the near future heading into next week, and I'll have more on that coming up at the end of your 7-day forecast when we break it down. And with the dry days, we also want to monitor those allergies. If you're susceptible to tree pollen and grass pollen, very high and high levels throughout today. A little bit of a flip-flop in this graphic. We've seen the ragweed levels at moderate levels along with that grass pollen. Not looking at much weed pollen today whatsoever. You see none right there on the scale, and even below what the mold levels are going to be, which are at low levels, not impacting you as much. If you're more susceptible to really sneezing and having your allergies flare up with tree pollen and grass pollen, make sure you're taking that allergy medication before heading out the door, and try to avoid spending long periods of time outside, as these are going to be running rampant not only today, but they look to be at very high levels throughout the duration of your weekend as well. So a crisp and cool 79 degrees for the next 5 days. Obviously not quite into the 80s and the 70s and the 80s. You see the difference in those two numbers and you think, oh, 80s, that's where we're starting to get into warm, maybe even borderline hot weather. Not necessarily. It's still going to feel virtually the same all throughout the next 5 days, even despite some rain at times. Actually, when we do have rain move in, it probably will feel a little bit cooler right after that rain moves through. But we're going to have a little bit of humidity in the forecast as well, so it may feel a little bit warmer at times. Nonetheless, not much to talk about with those high temperatures. The story is more going to be the morning lows. So today, dip down to 41, even 39 in some areas in central Georgia. We'll still be in the 40s tomorrow before cloud cover is present during the overnight hours. That's going to help keep us warmer on Saturday, Sunday, and even into Monday if we can have some rain linger. When you have overnight rain, it typically doesn't allow that low temperature to drop as low because you have cloud cover present. So it keeps the temperature range a little bit at bay, maybe only seeing about a 15 to 20 degree spread in between the high and the low temperatures, as opposed to this typical 40-degree swing that we have been seeing as of recently. I guess about 30, 35 degrees as of recently. So now let's go to the main focus of this, your long-range models. You can see that the GFS in green and the European in blue, even less agreement than what we had at this time yesterday. This is 4 a.m. on Sunday, and we did just get a glimpse at the short-range future view. It only goes out to 3 a.m. on Sunday, and the rain looked to be just on the state line of Georgia and Alabama. I think the rain will still continue to move in during the morning hours on Sunday, but how long it lasts is the question that we now have. Both models show pretty good consistency that some form of moisture will stay in the forecast for the second half of your Sunday. So I'm more inclined to believe that Sunday is just going to be a pretty dreary day with some scattered showers. But if we get some clearing during the second half of Sunday, that would definitely be very beneficial. Obviously, wrapping up your weekend with a little bit of a dry period. And then the first half of Monday is trending dry as well. But now we're seeing maybe a little bit earlier timing than what I was showing this morning with our next rainmaker. This is going to be round 2, pushing in from the north and the northwest. This is a frontal boundary. It's gaining more organization than we've seen as of yesterday and the day before. So I'm more inclined to believe that, yes, we have the potential for some storms, even some severe weather as we go into specifically the second half of your Monday. That's where you really see the timing move through the central Georgia corridor. 4 p.m. on Monday. Not the most opportune timing because obviously temperatures in the late afternoon into the early evening hours, that's when we're at the warmest, and that has been the luxury with the last couple of severe weather systems that have moved through. They've come through in the overnight hours when temperatures are just slightly cooler, but it does make all the difference in terms of instability and surface heat to work with ahead of that frontal boundary. Still, nonetheless, this is not atypical. Right now, we're in the severe weather season. We typically see these fronts come through. They start to get maybe all of the surface moisture as temperatures get warmer, and that stuff starts to enter back into our forecast, stuff that we don't deal with in the cooler months of the year. So not out of the normal to see these frontal boundaries pop up, some severe weather risk whatsoever. Want to go ahead and preface that before I get into all the nitpicky specific details. And then still maybe lingering a little bit in the southern southeastern portion of the state as we head into the nighttime hours in the early Tuesday morning. But I think the consensus is we will dry out after that Tuesday on into Wednesday. But then the models are all over the place. Once again, you can see the European model back here way off to the west. And the GFS already has the system move through as we go into Thursday afternoon next week. I do believe we're going to get a good stretch of, once again, some drier weather, and we're going to have a pattern that's going to lead to maybe some of the warmest temperatures we've seen so far in the year of 2025. But once again, we'll cross that bridge once we get there. We have more immediate concerns worrying about what's in store for the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week. So here's the day 5 outlook. Not much change with this. We've just really seen a push of this yellow shade farther over to the west. It still remains a very large area, as you can see right here. This is stretching from the Gulf Coast of Louisiana all the way up the southeast, parts of the Florida Panhandle and Peninsula, and going up the Atlantic coast into states like Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, up into Pennsylvania. So really just showing you that, number one, this system is going to be a system that has widespread impacts along with the day 4 risk, which is all these states back up here in the kind of eastern Midwest, southern Midwest, whatever you want to call it right there. So this system is going to be a system that has widespread impacts. However, where the strongest impacts are is still very up in the air. This is just really a covering the bases kind of outlook this far out, the 4 to 8 day outlooks. But it is notable because we have seen ourselves in this outlook for the last 2 days or so. And this outlook is going to go from Monday, 8 a.m. on Monday, all the way to 8 a.m. on Tuesday, thankfully not falling in between the timing of those outlooks like we have with the overnight systems that have moved through. But this is where we do stand, still a 15% chance of seeing severe weather. And while it doesn't seem like a lot, we have seen the guidance that this can be equivalent to a level 1 or a level 2 this far out. But the wording was a lot stronger with the system that passed through about 2.5 weeks ago over the weekend, where we did have that level 5 risk out over in Alabama. So this is not atypical. Once again, this is not out of the ordinary by any means. This is just highlighting a system that has severe weather potential. And I'll go into the specifics of what impacts that we're kind of trying to nail down now. So first things first, mostly rain with a few storms embedded within that moisture starting Sunday morning, and I think it's going to linger into the afternoon and evening hours. How far it lasts into Sunday, we'll get a much better idea of that over the next 24 hours once our short-range future view puts that entire system within its time window. The severe weather risk is the greatest with Monday's front. So mainly going to be your strong to severe storms and straight line winds. That is the one severe weather impact we've already seen outlined with the National Weather Service, the SPC, all of these outlooks we have been looking at. There's much less confidence on the potential for tornadoes, the potential for hail. So that's a good sign already, but still, strong to severe storms with gusty straight line winds can pose a threat and can damage many things, blow some trees, uproot them, cause damage of power lines, and anything loose that is outside. It can cause them to blow around and act as flying debris. So not to take away from what straight line winds are, obviously, trying to emphasize that. And this is not set in stone whatsoever. This is kind of the initial thinking that we've been seeing amongst all our model runs, amongst all the instability factors so far. It would be more of a straight line wind concern rather than seeing all those severe weather hazards like we have seen with recent systems. High confidence in the occurrence of this. So like I said, I'm continuing to use the wording that I think storms and severe weather are going to happen sometime as we go into Monday. The question is, how intense is this going to be, and the exact timing of this? We're still seeing the long-range models even disagree with that Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon rain, let alone going into what we're seeing on Monday. We do see better agreement right now, but who's to say that can't change in the blink of an eye as we come into work tomorrow and we see complete disagreement with the timing of this. So once we really nail down the timing, that will in turn also give us a better idea of what we're going to see in terms of specific severe weather hazards. So right now the timing of everything does stand Sunday morning, probably more so early morning hours. I'm thinking around 5 to 6 a.m. roughly right now. This is very likely to change over the next couple of days. And this rain could linger into the afternoon and evening. With Monday's front pushing through, I do believe it's going to start sometime around midday, just after midday, and start to move through as we go into the late afternoon into early evening hours. And it could linger a little bit into nighttime as well, but right there, that would be prime daytime heating time when those temperatures are at their warmest. So that's mainly the reason why I've started to say that, hey, I do think we have our fair share of thunderstorms, specifically on Monday because of the timing of this system. If this is to fluctuate 6 hours in one direction, 6 hours in the other direction, trend a little bit earlier, trend a little bit later, that would decrease my confidence because then obviously you don't have the most energy available ahead of this frontal boundary as it does trek through. So taking a look at your 7-day forecast piece by piece, let's try to move this out of the way so I can hit at every single day on the 7-day forecast. Opening day for the Braves today, Sweet 16 getting kicked off. A great day to go outside on a patio, maybe enjoy all of those games. Braves first pitch will be at 4:10 and they're playing over in San Diego. Sweet 16 games, haven't looked at the timing of that, but I know they will get started this afternoon and go into tonight. Another nice day on Friday, even despite some partly cloudy skies. We'll continue with that on Saturday. A slim chance of a sprinkle. 10% is definitely overshooting it, but obviously we do have enough moisture available. You could see a brief little drizzle, and obviously don't want you to think, oh, okay, he said 0% chance of rain. No, we still do have the slim chance of seeing a little bit of a light shower, but that's going to be located very locally and, like I said, very short-lived. So right now it stands 40% chance of rain on Sunday. Once we get a good idea of the coverage of that rain as it moves into central Georgia, we could likely see an uptick in this, and that will likely happen tomorrow morning when I come in and do these numbers, because once we get the short range view of future view, that will give us a better idea of this system in its entirety and especially how long it will last. And then 60% chance right now of seeing some thunderstorms as we go into Monday, specifically the second half of Monday as it stands right now. Like I said, we can still see some fluctuation with this timing, and it could increase my confidence, it could decrease my confidence. But I will say after the last 3 days, we've continued to see more agreement and more organization, at least with some system coming through. And I do believe the potential for severe weather is going to be there, but mainly some severe thunderstorm warnings and straight line winds as it stands right now. Then the system will move out and we will clear out for the first day of April on Tuesday. No, that is not an April Fool's joke. We will welcome back the sunny skies. And obviously this rain, we never like it to be of the severe criteria, but the heavier the rain is, obviously that's going to dump more rain on you, wash away more of that pesky pollen that typically builds up when temperatures get warmer. And we have a dry period like we have had so far over the course of this week, at least ever since Monday when we did have some rain move through. Then April 2nd on Wednesday, you see 83 right there. I do believe if we have a dry pattern set up, one of those ridges that you may hear us refer to, that's going to set high pressure up all across the southeast, and really the deep south, honestly, and that would allow for a warming trend maybe into the mid to possibly upper 80s by this time next week. So obviously that would get borderline flirting with some summertime temperatures right there. I don't know if I'm quite ready for some upper 80s yet, but that could be the pattern that sets up. The long-range models were deferring on that, so we really have a lot of fine-tuning on the details before we get that far. And anything past 7 days, it's really up to anyone's best guess. That's why we show you this 7-day forecast, because we're not the most confident in anything happening past these 7 days. So that's where things currently stand. I would say the potential for storms is increasing as we go into Monday. Nothing to be immediately concerned about. Obviously, we have 5 days before we even get there. And this is not out of the normal. This is the severe weather season. You're going to have some strong weather move through at times. But obviously, we will be keeping you updated here on 13 WMAZ Plus, our Facebook, on air. Us, the entire weather team, will be with you as we continue to get a better idea of this. Just something to keep on your radar as we head throughout the weekend. But for the meantime, I would suggest moving any outdoor plans you have on Sunday into Friday and Saturday. I feel like I have to say that a lot as of recently. It seems like Sunday's always been the timing for some form of active weather, but mainly showers. A few storms could be possible on Sunday, but not as confident in that severe weather as with Monday's system. It would have more to work with in terms of energy available. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a terrific Thursday, and go Braves.